Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no? Did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no? Did
has
you lead
been
an audit?
stated,
Yes or
it's
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
Yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
Yes
of these
or no?
organizations
Yes
has
or
been
no? Did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that
to
as a no.
bottom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, Secretary Mattis had to have this waiver as well. Mr. Hegseth, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense, and one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat, and not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition, and any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk, and I am not willing to do that. With that in mind, Mr. Hegseth, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense. We already know that you've only led the largest, a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant to figure out what went wrong, and that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion. You know, that is about 51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million is 51,568 times smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegseth, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no? Did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no?
has
Did you lead
been
an audit?
stated,
yes or
it's
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every
yes or
part
no?
of my leadership
yes
of these
or no?
organizations
yes
has
or
been
no? Did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that as
to
a no.
bottom.
What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day with high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegseth, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that the Secretary of Defense would lead? There's three main ones. Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other
Okay.
than serving in the military. So my job has been
So
to
no, the
lead
answer is no.
men
Can
and
you
women in
name one of the
combat.
three main ones that the
You're
Secretary
talking
of
about
Defense
defense
signs?
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't
inside
remember to mention
Afghanistan.
it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegseth. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact
No, you
amount of
couldn't,
nations in
because you've
that,
not
but I
even
know we have
bothered to
allies
do-
in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work
Okay.
on submarines with them.
Mr.
and data
Hegseth,
transfers
none
with
of those
them.
countries
We
are
have
in
allies
ASEAN.
across.
None of those three countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen, Mr. Hegseth, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way. And this behind me is a copy of the Soldier's Creed, a copy that usually hangs over my desk here in the Senate, and you should be familiar with it. It's the same copy that hung over my desk at Walter Reed every single day that I woke up and fought my way back because I wanted to go back and serve next to my buddies who saved my life. This same copy, these words are repeated over and over and over again. And let me read out two things to you, two sentences. I will always place the mission first, and I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior task. Mr. Hegseth, our troops follow these words every single day, and they man up and they pack their rucksacks and they go to war. And they deserve a leader who can lead them, not a leader who wants to lower the standards for himself or raising the standards for other people. And by the way, our troops already meet the standards. We ask troops to man that ship, fight that fire, fly that helicopter until their very last breath. And they do that every single day. They cannot be led by someone who's not competent to do the job. How can we ask these warriors to train and perform the absolute highest standards when you are asking us to lower the standards to make you the Secretary of Defense simply because you are buddies with our president-elect? And by the way, he has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. I'm not quite sure he's the kind of CEO you want to refer to as a successful businessman. Let me make it clear. You can't seem to grasp that there is no U.S. military as we know it without the incredible women that we serve. Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy, then let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth.
Tammy Duckworth didn't just question Pete Hegseth, she exposed, piece by piece, the glaring gap between the gravity of the office he's seeking and the shallow justifications he offered for why he deserves it. And to understand why this matters so much, we need to take a step back and think about what the Secretary of Defense actually does. This is not a ceremonial position. The Secretary of Defense oversees the largest military on Earth, with a budget that dwarfs almost every corporation and even most national economies. The Pentagon's budget hovers around $850 billion, bigger than the GDP of countries like Switzerland or Turkey. It covers everything from nuclear deterrence to cybersecurity, from housing soldiers to negotiating international defense treaties. So when Senator Duckworth asked whether Hegseth had ever led an audit, it wasn't a gotcha. It was a test of whether he had even the faintest experience managing resources on a scale remotely close to this responsibility. His answer was evasive, because the truth is, no. Duckworth also pressed him on international negotiations. That's critical, because the Secretary of Defense doesn't just command troops. They sit at the table with NATO allies, with Asian partners, with Middle Eastern coalitions, negotiating military basing rights, force agreements, and arms control measures. These agreements determine whether U.S. forces can operate overseas, whether allies trust us with intelligence sharing, and whether our deterrence is credible. When Hegseth couldn't name the most basic agreements, like status of forces or acquisition and cross-servicing, it wasn't just a slip. It revealed a dangerous lack of preparation for one of the central responsibilities of the office. And Duckworth framed it in a way that cut to the heart of military culture. She invoked the Soldier's Creed, a code that service members internalize and live by, putting mission first, maintaining discipline, being physically and mentally tough, and holding themselves to the highest standards. This is not abstract. These words are recited by young men and women before they deploy into combat zones, when they strap on gear and step into life-threatening missions. Duckworth lived this creed. She carried it into battle. She fought her way back from devastating injuries with those words as her guide. So when she looked across the table at Hegseth, her point wasn't just about his lack of technical knowledge. It was about the hypocrisy of demanding that soldiers risk everything to live by those standards, while he himself asks to be handed the highest military office in the country without meeting the most basic ones. That contradiction isn't just unfair, it's insulting to every service member who sacrificed to meet the bar set for them. And there's another layer here. Duckworth reminded us that America's adversaries are watching these hearings. They study our leadership transitions for signs of weakness, for cracks they can exploit. When someone auditioning for Secretary of Defense struggles to articulate the basics of budgeting or international alliances, that isn't just embarrassing in a Senate hearing room. It reverberates in Moscow, in Beijing, in Tehran. It sends a message that politics, not competence, might be steering the world's most powerful military. That perception alone can embolden rivals and put American lives at greater risk. This is why Duckworth's fiery closing matters so much. She reminded the committee and the American people that leadership isn't about loyalty to a president or friendship with those in power. It's about competence, preparation, and respect for the troops whose lives depend on the decisions made at the top. Her message was simple but devastating. If we wouldn't lower the standards for a private soldier in the field, why on earth should we lower them for the Secretary of Defense? This was more than a heated exchange. It was a civics lesson in real time about meritocracy, accountability, and the enormous stakes of who leads the Pentagon. Duckworth held up a mirror, not just to Hegseth, but to the system that allows unqualified nominees to be put forward in the first place. And in doing so, she reminded us of something critical, that our military strength doesn't come from slogans or connections, but from the integrity and competence of the people entrusted to lead it. So let's turn it over to you. Do you think Pete Hegseth demonstrated the kind of preparation and depth of knowledge required for this role? Should America's highest defense leaders be held to the same uncompromising standards as the troops they command? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe accountability should always flow from the top down, spread this video so more people can see what real leadership looks like when someone like Senator Tammy Duckworth calls it out.